The history of the United Democratic Party from its genesis has been about diversity and divergence, but also about unification and unity around a common purpose.
The birth of the United Democratic Party on September 27, 1973, was the result of a merger of three parties involved back then in the gargantuan task of opposing the seemingly unbeatable and powerful People's United Party, the ruling party of the day. For 23 years before that, the PUP had dominated Belize's political scene virtually unopposed.
At the time, the People's United Party was the only party that had ever been in power, and they'd been in power essentially since self-government.
I thought that George Price did strike me as being sincere. George Price, he was a rough customer. In fact, his whole philosophy was, I shall reward my friends and punish the enemies, and he lived up to that.
The opposition consisted of the Liberal Party, led by Harry Lawrence, and members Curl Thompson, Paul Rodriguez, Nestor Vasquez, Henry Young, and Sir Manuel Esquivel. The People's Development Movement, headed by Dean Lindo, and members Collett Gill, Ken Tillett, and Charles Wagner, and the National Independence Party, led by Philip Goldson, and members Herbert Bunton Fuller, Henry Fairweather, Joe Andrews, and Jorge Guerra Mena.
Well, by this time I wasn't NIP, I was PDM. Well, we decided eventually that it didn't make sense to be fighting separately. We better join forces because it was divide and conquer so that they could split up the three parties were divided. So then we joined NIP and PDM joined, then eventually the Liberals joined us. That was how we formed the UDP.
This amalgamation was born out of concern that the PUP, because of its performance to date, was on its way to consolidate itself as the sole ruling party in Belize. During the same time in COROZAL, a new group was emerging, the COROZAL United Front, the CUF, formed by Israel Alpuche, Andres Campos, Edmund Longsworth, and Maria Reyes. The time was ripe for tangible and active opposition to the People's United Party. It is at this point that a dynamic reverend by the name of Gerald Fairweather, with visionary initiative, organized these rather ineffective opposition groups and united them into what would become the great party that is the United Democratic Party.
1 year later, in 1974, the then unified opposition came within 3 seats and 18 votes of winning the general elections. Dean Lindo emerged as party leader.
By 1977, a new emerging group in Orange Walk called the Voice of the Silent Majority, led by Elodio Aragon Sr., Ruben Campos, and Fred Martinez, had teamed up with the UDP to take control of the town board there, with Elodio Aragon Sr. being elected as mayor.
It started as a community movement. There was a newspaper called the Voice of the Silent Majority, so that it was a newspaper in which we could express ourselves. And the United Democratic Party was that avenue for us to go and join to express ourselves, because it was about elections. And the United Democratic Party at that time offered the vision of participation, and that is where we were fit into joining the United Democratic Party.
In the 1979 general elections, the UDP lost some ground, and after a divisive period with Theodore Aranda as leader, the party eventually regained its unity under the leadership of Manuel Esquivel. There was renewed energy and an impressive lineup of attractive candidates.
I can't remember the exact day. I think it was something in the early 80s when Mr. Price increased the number of representatives from 18 to 28. And they were looking around for people to run. You know, I had just had Belize'S, which was at its peak. At the same time, the party was looking for people to go in, and they dragged me in, right? Because they thought that I would have been able to win a constituency.
In 1984, the United Democratic Party won its first general elections. After 23 years of PUP rule, the Right Honorable Sir Manuel Esquivel became UDP's first Prime Minister. While the UDP leaders were new to governing a country, Prime Minister Manuel Esquivel moved quickly to stabilize the finances of the country. The 1984 UDP administration rescued Belize from the PUP's financial crisis that was so devastating we were forced to be on life support with the International Monetary Fund. Under the UDP, the economy expanded by 5% just 1 year after successfully concluding the standby arrangement with the IMF. The 1984 UDP administration established the UDP's culture of vision, financial prudence, and national development. And today, we continue to enjoy the fruits of that period. The UDP would return to power in 1993, after another period of disunity, which misled the PUP into calling early general elections, only to see the UDP reunify and pull off a stunning upset. 1998 marked the end of an era for the UDP, with the transition of leadership from Right Honorable Sir Manuel Esquivel to Dean Barrow, who was then the deputy party leader.
I am part of a consensus that is convinced that we must prepare our party for the next century by a process of revitalization that includes administrative as well as political reconstruction.
The new party leader had an enormous task ahead to restructure and rebuild the UDP after a crushing 26-3 defeat at the polls. Undaunted, Barrow immediately put a heroic plan in place.
It's going to be challenging, but not altogether difficult. Already, Patrick, we have the makings of the team that can enable us to put this process in place. So we don't have any doubts at all that the process, while it's going to be an arduous one, will be a successful one.
In the 2003 general elections, the UDP made modest gains and added an extra seat in the Cayo South by-election a few months later.
I think at that time the country was already beginning to get a sense of the corruption of the People's United Party, and at that time also, you may recall, they had a constitutional majority, which meant that they were able to change the constitution. They had a majority, that constitutional majority of by one. And so that one crucial seat of Cayo South would have made a difference in taking away the constitutional majority from the PUP. And I think the voters of Cayo South saw that as very important in making their decision to go along with me in that by-election.
In 2006, Barrow's winning streak commenced with a massive UDP victory at the polls, where UDP captured 64 out of 67 seats in the municipal elections. When the general election date was finally announced for 7th February 2008, the UDP was energized, organized, and ready. It was beautiful to watch the UDP machinery in full swing. The UDP won the 2008 general elections convincingly, taking 25 of the 31 seats.
Oh, what a glorious day! Ladies and gentlemen, it's a tremendous feeling. It is an overpowering feeling. It is a humbling feeling. I want you to know that I know that above all, this victory teaches that all power comes from the people.
After successive victories in 3 general elections and 5 municipal elections, an extended period marked by a revolutionary countrywide transformation in infrastructure, repatriation of public utilities and national assets, and heavy investments in education, sports, human development, and pro-poor programs, the UDP suffered a devastating defeat in the November 2020 general elections, preceded by a transition of leadership only 1 month earlier from Dean Barrow to Patrick Farber.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a time for every leader, and every leader has his time. I wish to assure you that I will build on the foundation left to me by my predecessors. This legacy of Manuel Esquivel and Dean Barrow, combined with a new generation of ideas, of energy, of innovation, will be undertaken with close engagement and consultation with each and every Belizean at every level of society.
With characteristic UDP determination and resolve, Patrick Farber and the UDP picked up the pieces and soldiered on.
We might be a little bit down right now, but we're not out. We will build things back to show that this party is one of the strongest political machines. When this phoenix rises, you will see the beauty of the United Democratic Party.
Disunity would set in once again, but after a few months of dramatic instability, the party is once again reunified and united around that common cause and purpose.
Unanimous. There was not one dissenting voice to say that we should not fully unify this party to make us a strong and formidable force against the People's United Party, and of course to make us fighting fit to defend the rights of the Belizean people.
It is just time to unite, time to put aside our differences and concentrate on being an effective opposition and a viable government in waiting.
And so the party is back on track, recommitted to its vital function as a strong and effective opposition, and ready to usher in a new era of UDP-led development with Honorable Patrick Farber as Belize's next Prime Minister.
The UDP government that I will lead will be dynamic, it will be efficient, it will be consultative, it will be modern, and it will be progressive. We will listen to new ideas and we will join hands with our citizens, with our business community, with our labor partners, and with civil society. We will embrace technology and we will use it to forge a closer connection with the citizens, to provide a new level of openness and trust in the government and a seamless way to do business with government. We will develop this nation to its potential, but not at the expense of fairness and equality or of the environment, which has to be preserved for generations to come.